Hello, this is Catherine from Accelerated Reader Reading Books for You. Today I will be reading Chapter 10 from The Bucket by D.J. Cattrell, illustrated by Mei Lee. Before I begin reading, I would like to give a big thanks to the author for sending me this book to read on my channel. In the description below, I've included links where you may find and purchase this book. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Chapter 10. Robin trotted behind Rachel and Cobulus, groaning, holding his ear, and thinking about different ways to inflict pain on Cobulus. If he could just pin the little weevil down. Cobulus was pulling Rachel along by the hand. We go pets, cave, play game, hurry, lots fun. Rachel stopped, much to the annoyance of Cobulus. Something suddenly troubled her. What is your version of the touch game, Cobulus? Is it like tag? Cobulus just pulled at her more. Come, you see, easy game, come. Rachel felt that something was wrong, but couldn't quite think what. So she carried on running with Cobulus. Eventually, after about 15 minutes of Robin's whinging, they came to a large hole in the cave wall. It was a cave within a cave, and the entrance was easily big enough to walk through, and then some. The green glow seemed to shine more brightly inside. Here, said Cobulus. Here, game. Rachel peered into the green glowing cave. It was really big and had a high ceiling from which huge white sparkling stalactites hung. The cave was vaguely circular with a sort of double staircase leading up each side carved into the wall. Around the bottom of the cave there were several very large wooden doors. They all had quite ornate handles, and she noticed that they had the same patterns as were on her bucket. She moved her hand down to check it. All fine. It still hung from her belt. It was odd because it was quite big, but it seemed to take up no space at all, and it weighed hardly anything. One of the doors had a large piece of wood propped up under the handle, and there was a slow but loud banging coming from behind it. The main feature of the cave, though, was the huge creature sitting right in the middle of it. It was a bit like one of the rock anemones, but different. It had lots of little tentacles that were all dug into the ground around it, like the others that they had seen. But instead of having a hole in the top or bottom, this one had another circle of tentacles on its top or bottom, all seemingly at rest in a circle, but from the look of the length of them, they could reach every part of the cave. That was a very big rock anemone. Cobulus pulled her into the cave. Robin followed, wondering what would happen if Rachel lost. A lifetime of torture by an evil, leathery sprite. He resolved to help Rachel win this game as if his life depended on it, which he thought it does. Cobulus jumped onto Rachel's shoulder. First one to touch pointy spike up there, win. Stick on stair, help you run, he said, laughing. When you say go, we start. Rachel looked at the two staircases. Cobulus is really fast, but he's also very small, she thought. We should reach the top about the same time, so it will be close. There must be a catch. Cobulus jumped down and stroked her hand. Say go, we start, he said eagerly. Rachel hesitated for a moment, looked up the stairs to see a stick halfway up on either side. She wasn't really sure how a stick would help her run. "Okay then," she said. "Go!" Cobulus ran to one staircase, and Rachel ran to the other. Just as Cobulus hit the first step, he bent down running and scooped up a large stone. Rachel had already reached the first step and began to run up the rest of the steps, 2 at a time. Cobulus stopped, took aim, and then hurled the small rock into the center of the rock anemone. When it hit the middle of the creature, the anemone's tentacles immediately unfurled and began waving wildly around in the air, searching for its attacker. Rachel ducked as one of the tentacles whooshed by her. Cobulus shouted from the other side of the cave, "Not worry. Tentacle touch you. It only eat you. Ha ha." He scampered up his staircase towards the stick on his side. Robin shouted encouragement to Rachel from his side. "Go, Rachel, go!" Then a huge tentacle slapped him in the back and lifted him off his feet. "Whoa! Help!" The tentacle swung Robin through the air, and he threw his arms up to grab a hold of anything that might save him. Just as his arms went up, he slipped out from his jacket and fell to the floor. With a grunt, the tentacle swung around even more wildly. He looked around the cave in panic and noticed the wood propped under one of the doors. Without thinking, he ran towards it and grabbed it from under the handle, and in one movement swung it around to hit a tentacle. The tentacle immediately shrank back and curled up. Robin shouted to Rachel, "Hit the tentacles!" Rachel heard him and looked down to see what had happened. "Use the stick, Rachel," shouted Robin. Rachel started back up the stairs. As she did so, the door that Robin had taken the piece of wood from burst open, and the biggest man Robin had ever seen rushed out and roared, its eyes flaming red. It wasn't all man, though. It had 2 huge bull's horns on its head and a lot more muscle than a human should be allowed to have. It even had bulging muscles in its face. It had an odd-looking tail, and as Robin looked down, cloven hooves instead of feet. "Where's Cobulus?" it roared at Robin. Its powerful voice thundered through the cave. Robin just pointed up the stairs in shock. The bullman turned and saw Cobulus, who was nearly at his stick. The bullman looked at Robin and picked him up by the back of his collar, grabbed Robin's lump of wood, and hurled it at Cobulus. The wood found its mark, and Cobulus squealed in pain as it hit him, and he fell backwards down the stairs. Rachel dodged another tentacle and reached her stick, swinging round to hit anything coming her way with it. The bullman dropped Robin and ran to the bottom of Cobulus's stairs, scooping him up. "Got you! Now I shall crush you, little cockroach." Rachel, unaware of what was going on, leapt the last stairs and grabbed at a stalactite. A shower of silver dusty granules tumbled from the roof of the cave onto the creature below. She turned and shouted, "I win, Cobulus! I win!" She looked down and saw what was going on. When silver dust touched the tentacles, they stopped waving around and came to rest again. The bullman was shaking Cobulus hard. "Lock me in my own store cupboard, will you? When will you ever stop with your tricks? Get ready to die. Rachel was suddenly very angry and shouted down, Leave him alone! The bullman looked up. Who are you to tell the Minotaur what to do, little girl? Rachel hated to see bullying and started back down the stairs. My name is Rachel the Intrepid, and you are being a bully, she shouted. It was the first time she had ever called herself by the nickname her father had given her so long ago, and it felt good. She also remembered something about minotaurs. The runt is mine, Rachel the Intrepid. This is not your business. Get out of my cave, or I shall eat you. Do you not know who I am? Rachel shouted back as she jumped from step to step. I don't care who you are. You are being a bully, and I have business with Kobolos as well. Put him down now. Robin stood back out of the way, unsure of how to help. Rachel dropped down to the last step and walked straight to the Minotaur, but spoke to Robin as she went. Get ready to catch Kobolos and hold him tight. Robin was confused. Okay. The Minotaur laughed. You think you can fight a Minotaur, girl? He looked dangerously fierce, towering above her, and his voice boomed around the cave. He lowered his head, pointing his horns directly at Rachel, and his eyes flared bright, fiery red. Rachel smiled as she neared him. No, she said. Then she ran at him and dived into a forward roll through his legs. But I can tickle one. And with that she stood up and sank her fingers into the Minotaur's waist and wriggled her fingers. The Minotaur roared and dropped Kobolos. No, ha, ha, no, stop it! Kobolos ran, but Robin was too quick for him this time, grabbing him by both arms. Rachel jumped onto the Minotaur's back and wriggled her fingers up under his arms. The Minotaur bent over laughing, trying to escape the tickling. Rachel grabbed one of his huge horns and tickled him around the neck, which was very thick and muscly. Not the neck! Please, I give in! Not the neck! Ha ha! Rachel carried on tickling. Kobolos is mine, okay? The Minotaur laughed harder. Yes, yes, Kobolos is yours. Please stop. I can't take any more. The Minotaur dropped to his knees, but Rachel carried on. No more trying to scare anyone, okay? The Minotaur pleaded. Okay, I promise. Please stop now. The Minotaur cried with laughter. Rachel jumped off him and sat on the floor to catch her breath. Both Robin and Kobolos had watched this whole exchange in disbelief. How does she know this stuff? Said Robin, amazed. Kobolos looked up at Robin. Kobolos, not no pet ticklish. Kobolos, remember this for future, and grinned an evil grin. The Minotaur sat up, rubbing his sides. That was unfair, Rachel the Intrepid, and brave, very brave. How did you know of my weakness? Rachel smiled. I'm not sure. Someone told me a long time ago, and quite recently, I think. Are you okay? The Minotaur sat on his haunches. I have not laughed like that for a fair few years. Rachel turned to Kobolos and frowned. You have been very bad, Kobolos. The Minotaur is not your pet anymore, okay? Kobolos was a bit thrown by this. But Kobolos need pet. Kobolos need to play. Rachel was puffed out and in no mood to argue. No, I won and you owe me. Now tell me the way to my sister. Kobolos grinned again. Yes, Rachel win touch game like sister and say Kobolos from pet. Kobolos show way and, with a nod from Rachel, Robin let go of Kobolos. First, though, said Rachel, we must rest for a while. I'm done in. Thank you for listening. Stay tuned for Chapter 11. Don't forget to like and subscribe. In the description below, I've included links where you may find and purchase this book.